have in a really warm room.
Comfy warm.
Here we are, episode 20.
Wow.
I knew. I was just waiting for you to say it.
I said the right word.
Yeah.
20.
Our number.
20.
Yeah.
20, welcome back to Testing Normal, episode 20. We just decided.
Yep. This
Even
is
if
Curtis.
It's not, this episode is going to. Oh, see, look at that. Look at that, guys. What would the episode be if I didn't mute my phone on the live stream?
Oh my gosh.
I know, I'm crazy. Anyway.
Well, I'm Curtis.
And I'm Jordan.
And this is a podcast where we talk about anything and everything we want to.
Yeah.
And today we have a very special guest, Mr. Luke Zedwick.
Woohoo!
Thanks for having me, guys.
The man, the myth, the legend.
I'm excited.
We've talked about this for a while. I'm excited too.
Indeed, I know.
Super excited.
But finally, we have a reason to have you on here. Not just because we like you. But you got some cool, exciting stuff that we want to sit and have some time and get cozy, comfy, and talk about it.
Talk about you. Talk about us. Talk about stuff.
Yeah. So you've listened to a few episodes.
Yeah, probably a handful.
Okay.
Or more.
Nice.
What topic the most has like made you want to like jump through your phone and like wring our necks or just like join the discussion?
Well, so growing up, I was an arguer. It was sort of the thing I would do for fun, right? I like to find the right argument and break it down all the way to the beginning. And I lost a lot of friends that way. And so when I get that impulse, I'm pretty good now at shutting it down. But you guys have hit some topics, the local politics, abortion. I think you've talked some gun control a little bit.
We did. It was like hunting, more hunting.
And then Sasquatch.
Yeah, that's a good one. There's a lot of people that get angry about Sasquatch.
I don't know why you'd get angry. It's a fun topic, but
it is.
What's your stance on general, moral topics are tough.
What is your stance on Sasquatch?
I don't have a stance, although I have a story.
So you don't have an opinion?
I have a conjecture. I doubt it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
fair.
So real quick for everybody, I want to kind of give people a down low about Luke Zedwick.
Yeah.
He is a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
He is a principal.
Yeah.
He is an author. And
coming soon, yeah.
He's a speaker and a consultant for management companies, for managers.
Managers, yeah.
Management consulting.
So this dude like pretty much has done everything when it comes to education.
Some of those I'm just beginning to do.
Right, because of your experience.
Because of my experience, and a lot of people have been principals, and a lot of people have been teachers, and I don't feel like I was stellar in any sense. I've known teachers that are far better than I have ever been.
Right.
Some of whom I work with now. And likewise principals. I think the advantage I have is that I love to learn and figure out how systems work and how people work.
Yeah.
So I have a degree in mathematics. I was a math and science teacher. And the thing I love about math, in particular, I remember the moment in calculus class in high school when all the math I had done, like my whole life, was on one sheet of paper. When you really first take the concept of limits to infinity and it begins to become calculus. And I thought I could see the whole universe, and how the planets move was explained on that piece of paper.
But did it prove that the Earth is round?
No, but they did later prove that it's kind of a tomato shape. But
that's true. Yeah. It's more of a pear.
Is it?
Yeah.
A pear. Is it fatter on the bottom?
Yeah.
How do you know which one is the bottom and which one is the top?
I don't know.
Arbitrary?
It's space, man. It just depends on which way you spin.
Right. Yeah.
You spin me right around.
I do think it's funny. Like every time you go into space, it's always the United States right in the middle. Like I think that's what space actually looks like.
I was watching the Universal logo, in the beginning of movies.
Yeah.
And I was like, I started to get curious about that very thing.
Yeah.
And you see Asia go across, and you're like, oh, this is so nice. And then it zooms out, and like, oh no, there's America right in the middle as it ends.
Yeah.
But dude, have you noticed on the
that's what space is shaped.
What's it called? Apple TV.
Yeah.
On the Apple TV, the screen, that when it goes to like, there's a satellite view of it going over the Earth.
Yes.
And I've tried so many times to figure out where that specific location is because it's not the U.S.
You want to know a little secret?
I think it's South America.
No, you want to know a little secret?
I think it's Africa.
If you just tap your finger on the touch part of your your Siri remote, it will pop up a little thing that explains the picture you're looking at.
Well, will it explain the location of what I'm looking at though?
And it the last one I looked at showed like what part it was over. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah, like, they pan through cities and stuff.
Yeah.
It'll show you,
it's
like,
a fun guessing
now
game,
on
though.
this. It is,
Like,
but they change all the time, too, and there's websites dedicated to...
Oh, no kidding?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's dope.
So I have a cool story about that.
Yeah.
Last summer, we went to Indonesia, and I got the opportunity to teach there. And Facebook, at the time, their notification button was a globe.
Right.
And,
yeah.
And it had America, of course, at the center.
Right.
And then when I landed in Indonesia, I checked Facebook. Indonesia was the center.
No.
And I was like, this is amazing.
They're so smart.
Yeah. And then within a month, because I wanted to tell everybody, within a month, they had changed it to some other little symbol, and now it's gone.
Oh, that's sad.
I know.
That's pretty cool, though. I remember, like, when we took little things like that for granted, like the clock on our iPhone didn't actually tell the time. It was just like whatever time that they wanted it to say, and now it actually moves. Like it shifts with it and everything. Yeah. It didn't used to do that. Like, they've kind of, I don't know, maybe the phone wasn't fast enough or something like that, but...
Now that I say that, though, I wonder if it was actually China that was the middle. Because,
Well, yeah.
Dude, did you hear about this crazy thing that's going on in China? Dang, I wish I read this article.
Are we talking about the social scores?
No.
Wait.
There's a huge protest going on with like over 1 million some people that were protesting on the streets right now.
Actually
is it
really
Hong Kong?
hoping,
it's in Hong Kong, right?
Yeah, I was really hoping Luke knew about this so he could explain it to me, because I like tried to figure out what they're protesting.
So I figured it out. What's
is
happening?
It the anniversary of Tiananmen Square?
No. This is Hong Kong is not part of China, or
it has to do with extradition.
So like, there's a small. Is it an island? Is Hong Kong an island off of?
Yeah.
So okay, Hong Kong is an island off of China. Okay, it was basically a separate state of China,
British colony,
a British colony that. There's a whole nother drama that's going to go on because they gave like a 50-year or some type of lease, basically saying eventually China can take it back over after Britain left. But that's a whole different issue.
Okay,
that's not what they're doing right now.
Right now, there's this big drama going on in Hong Kong because a guy that
I'm gonna bring up a
committed some type of, I think, like not felony, but some type of crime in China had ran away to Hong Kong. Okay, and there's a law basically that China and Hong Kong have, and they don't allow for extradition to China from Hong Kong. However, there's a new law that's about to be passed or something along these lines that's then going to allow this person to be extradited to China. But all these millions of people in Hong Kong are very concerned.
Pull the iPad up real quick and look at
this.
They're
They're concerned because if China gets the right to extradite and demand people from Hong Kong, if any people in Hong Kong protest
Look how
China,
many people are on the highway. They're watching it. Like
right now we're seeing millions of people.
Builds. Now watch.
It's not really about the guy.
Like
no,
it's
not
about
the guy.
The Chinese secret police being able to take people
away from Hong Kong.
Yeah.
If they have any beef with Hong Kong, because China is obviously such a totalitarianism state.
You can
very,
take that down now.
Very.
Well, they said that there's 1 million people in the streets and there's 7 million people in the city. So that means 1 in 7 people are out there.
Yeah, 1 in 7 people are protesting because out of fear that, man, if we give an inch, China's going to take a mile.
Oh, yeah.
And basically, if we protest anything against China, they're going to have some reason or legal implications to be able to take us away from our country.
Yeah.
Which seems
Here, I have another picture
like a leap, but
that I put up.
Oh, that's cool.
Look at that.
Whoa. Dude, that's huge.
That is like a
So
really
here's the
big
question.
problem.
If this was happening in mainland China, would any photos be getting out?
No.
Do you know what I mean?
I doubt
Not
it.
from China.
Right.
Yeah.
They'd have to be coming from somewhere else.
They would get out, but I don't.
Well, how much press would they get?
Yeah, I don't know. There's been some
how
weird
did
things
Tiananmen? What's it called?
China's got
Tiananmen Square. Yeah.
Tiananmen. How did that get out? That would have even harder time to get out, right?
Pretty self-contained, yeah. Because the official press releases were like it was. 40,
here's another photo on the ground that I have.
Do you remember when Ukraine was losing it like this?
Well, like literally, what was it? 5 years ago, Russia literally
this
took
would stress me out so
over
bad to be in that
a country, like the southern border of another country, because that's what they did. It was Crimea. Russia came and just took over Crimea.
Well, they took over the major port.
Right.
Yeah. But it's several years before that. What was in it? Georgia or?
Right.
Yeah. They've been going
Ukraine was Georgia?
No, before Ukraine,
Russia.
it was Georgia. Russia invaded.
Right. Yeah, which is a whole other drama. But I don't remember why we got on
I don't know why we got there, but hey, there's some things that I actually have been curious about you, Luke.
Okay.
And I think that maybe I've heard bits and pieces, but just so that people can kind of get to know you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What got you into teaching in the first place?
Well, that's a fascinating story. And one I like to tell. Growing up, I wanted to be a teacher, but it sort of faded away, my interest in it. I remember being a kid and loving to teach or having that idea. And then as I grew up in high school, I had all these different ideas. I wanted to be a lawyer. Maybe I wanted to be in forestry. I was a Boy Scout, and I really loved the outdoors.
I could see you doing both those things really well.
Like a lawyer for Boy Scouts.
Ooh.
We can get to that later. And
I'm going to write that down.
And then I went to Oregon State.
Yeah.
And I was immediately thrust into a social circle with a bunch of Christians.
Okay.
And one of the guys who I looked up to said that he was still praying about, and he was a sophomore, he was still praying about what to major in. And I thought, because I had
you're already here.
I know. And I had just by default, I thought I'm going to try forestry. You know, Oregon's got a forestry plan. Oregon State has a pretty good program.
Yeah.
And
our friend Nick went through that, didn't he?
So I did one term of forest management and learned some wood identification and a really easy calculus class. I was really enjoying.
Yeah.
I think for the second half I went twice, because it was like calculus for business majors, and I was nerding out all the way on that. But anyway, I went and I thought, that's an interesting idea to pray about it. And so I went it was like a Friday. I went the next morning. In the dorm, there was this little kind of study room.
Yeah.
I went in there and I knelt down in front of a chair, which I can't think of another time that I've prayed that way. I just felt like I was supposed to.
Yeah.
And I just, in the simplest way, said, God, what should I major in? And he said, major in math and be a teacher.
All right.
And in that moment, like all these memories of school growing up
came up.
I remembered being in 4th grade and thinking, I know how to get these kids in line. I remember going home that day and telling my mom that I was going to be a teacher.
Oh.
I actually went in through middle school, all my yearbooks, and multiple kids had said, thanks for all the help in math, and signed my yearbook. Like 3, 4, 5 kids every year. I kept looking through it, and they always said
you'd kind of forgotten until that moment.
And it just faded away, yeah. And I got interested in being somebody, like making money or being whatever, doing my own thing. And that was a big part of the process for me of finding a place of worship of God, was to give that away.
Yeah.
And teaching is where I landed.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You've told me a story. I don't know if Curtis has heard it. I think it was like, were you doing like you were like filling in as a teacher or something, where you had the kids outside?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-mm.
Like with the pitching machine?
Oh yeah. No, that was my first teaching job, was high school.
Okay.
Physics.
I love this. Have you heard this, Curtis? This story?
I don't think so.
No. So I was teaching. I was 22 years old. I got hired because I didn't have a master's degree or even any teaching program. I had a math degree.
Okay.
And I was planning to kind of I was working at a bike shop, and I was going to do that. And, I was done with my undergrad, and I didn't know. I thought maybe go to get a master's in physics. And
where were you living at that time?
In Corvallis.
So
having graduated
naturally
from Oregon
you would
State.
be working at a bike shop.
In a bike shop.
Yeah,
that's
I was
right.
going to say,
There's
you could be Portland, Salem,
8
or
of those.
Corvallis, maybe Eugene, but
yeah,
bike shop's a normal job.
So my mom knew the secretary of this private school, and they were looking for a math teacher. And so I went down. I was wearing I think I was wearing Birkenstocks, honestly.
Nice.
I went down
there.
Fit
in?
No, not at this private school.
Oh, okay.
That was a no-no.
Oops.
I mean, I didn't even wear a shirt
that
I would tuck in. It had a collar, so I was proud of that.
That's good.
And they hired me on the spot. School started in like a week.
Pretty desperate.
Yeah, calculus and physics. And I thought, sounds good.
And did they have a curriculum or anything, or?
They had teacher editions that they handed me. And they said, try to get through those.
Ooh.
And each course I was teaching, except for calculus, I think I was teaching, because I was only half-time to start out.
Okay.
But it made more than a bike shop.
Well, yeah. I mean, what wouldn't?
Right. I didn't even own a car. I had like 5 roommates, so my rent was like $150.
And 12 bikes.
And I rode my bike to work, yeah.
Wow.
So I was teaching physics.
This is a very Oregon story.
I was teaching physics. It was really fun. But all these kids were like 18, 17, 18. I'm 22, turning 23.
Yeah.
And several of them were the younger siblings of my friends.
What?
Who had gone to this school growing up. And so I knew them, had hung out with them on weekends, and I was like, I got to get a beard fast. Yeah. And you guys got to call me Mr. Z and not Luke.
Oh, yes.
And so we were teaching this lesson on vectors.
So that's where Mr. Z started.
That's where it all started. Nice, yeah, immediately.
Nice.
We were teaching on vectors.
Okay.
And so I was drawing a diagram of an object flying up at an angle.
Love vectors.
and that there was a horizontal and a vertical component. And I said, if the object were going this way and you launched it that way, if the horizontal components were equal, then the object would just go straight up. And I said, like if you put a pitching machine in the back of a truck and somebody's like, raised their hand, and they're all 18-year-olds, right?
Right, yeah.
And they're like, I got a pitching machine. And the other guy's like, I got a truck. And the third kid's like, oh, we got a generator. So I said, field trip. We're doing it tomorrow. So they brought all the stuff. And actually, I don't think it was a kid's pitching machine. I think it was like the softball coach, and the kid went and got it.
Yeah.
We set it up in the back of the truck, and I had like an old VHS camera, like on your shoulder.
Yeah.
And they drove the truck one way and shot the softballs out the back, and it was like 15 softballs bouncing perfectly up and down as the truck drove by. It was super fun.
So they launched more. So they launched 15.
They just kept launching them, driving at a steady speed, launching out. And we had calculated the speed of the pitch, the angle, and therefore how fast the truck needed to drive.
Right.
And then we tested it all out, and it worked. I think it took 2 tries.
That's awesome.
It was super
That's
fun.
cool. I wish you had a video of that so we could show that.
Probably. Well, that VHS is probably degraded to the point now.
Yeah?
Yeah, everyone's like, what?
It'd be fun, though.
I remember those.
Yeah.
Probably in a time capsule somewhere that we won't be able to play.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But now, Luke, you're going... you're currently working as a principal at a elementary school.
Correct.
But there's some changes going on with that. Is that right?
Yeah. So I've just, I love teaching, and I look for every chance I get to teach. I say yes. I mentioned going to Indonesia. Somebody just asked me to go teach, and it was teaching dads. I had made these videos. I spent about a year making videos for parents. It had started as a class project in kind of continuing education for principals. And I decided to make a resource for parents, and I kept making the videos because I was having a good time.
Yeah.
And all of 40 people would watch each one, and
I've watched a bunch of them.
It didn't matter. It was a good time.
They're great.
And
I like the OG ones with shaky cam.
Yeah.
And you were just like getting your feet wet and video editing. It was great.
There's a lot to learn. It's harder than you think.
Oh, I know.
The worst is you've got all this footage, and then none of it's any good, and you think, what do I do now?
Yeah, what do I do now? I've got so many gigs of video.
Yeah. But about a year ago, one of the videos I made about bullying got some press that was not positive. And
what did they not like about it? Or who didn't like it, and who didn't like it, and then what was the negative views about bullying?
What I had said about bullying, I said a bunch of things.
Yeah,
but
lots.
the thing that
it's like a 10-minute video.
The thing they jumped on was I said most kids who get bullied are annoying.
And deserve it?
No, not
he
that
never
they
said deserve it.
Well, I know. I'm just obviously I'm going to say a lot of inappropriate things, but
yeah.
I mean, but maybe
we're used to that.
Yeah. What were you going to say though?
No. Well, what I was saying was that there are a lot of kids who are annoying on purpose, right?
Yeah.
And so if your kid is getting bullied, it might also be that they're annoying on purpose, and that's making it worse.
Okay.
Right.
But what I said was most kids who get bullied are annoying.
And
that was all they needed.
Yep.
Boom.
Boom.
And thinking
dude,
back, I thought if I had just said some,
didn't you make the news?
if I had just said a lot, no, I made the news in Portland.
Funny.
Yeah, I was
Oh
on
my
TV.
God, are you serious?
Yeah. Well, they had a follow up because I made a follow up video.
Right.
But anyway, I mean, it was interesting. There were a lot of people that were not from our hometown or where we live who were mad, and there were one or two people in our town who were upset. But the vast majority of the people we know and who know us understood what we were trying to get at.
Right.
But that sound clip was hard to get around, and
Yeah, because that's all they would play. That's
right. Yeah.
And then even when you got interviewed, I mean, to anyone who's been on the news, like they just chopped it pieces, whatever you say.
Oh, the news anchor chopped it up too.
Well, they just took that little section.
Okay.
And then they quoted it, right? Because you can type that out and say, principal says kids who are bullied are annoying. I'm like, you guys, that's not what I'm trying to say.
Which,
and
to their defense, is true.
It is what I said.
You did say that.
Yeah.
But can you imagine how funny it would be if you were like, no, like I'm backing that up specifically. like kids that are bullied, they're just annoying.
You just stand your ground.
Can you imagine what the uproar that would have surrounded that?
Well, and what I was meaning is not that they annoy me.
Right, yeah.
That they are trying to be annoying.
Yes, yeah.
And I think most people know that about their kids.
Oh yeah.
And those who don't, I worry for them.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to many groups of kids, and I say, who here, we talk about behavior, because that's what I do a lot as a principal.
Mm-hmm.
And in these conversations, I say, who likes to annoy people? And a couple kids will raise their hands. And I say, who has a brother or sister? And they all do. And I say, do you annoy them? And then they all raise their hands.
Yeah.
Because everybody annoys their sibling. The only people who don't are only children, right?
Right, yeah.
And
even they try.
Right. And so anytime you do that, you're initiating a power struggle.
Right.
And that's what life is about.
Yeah.
And trying to equip kids to handle the power struggle that they're going to encounter, not to mention just the terrible things that are also going to happen to them, not by anybody's fault.
During that time, were you saying that you felt like a majority of the kids that are bullied, they themselves are acting perhaps annoying to other kids?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I in my head, like, I definitely could see like that being a certain circumstance where some children that get bullied are being annoying.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I wouldn't have assumed that the majority of the kids that get bullied, they themselves are annoying. Like, I would see, like, if a kid like has like a deformity or disability or something like that, and other kids make fun of them, I wouldn't imagine that they themselves are being annoying, but the kids would be making fun of them because of their discrepancy.
Well, and I've done a lot of reading since then, right, and learned
Sure.
quite a bit about the topic and gone to some seminars. But the consensus among psychologists is that no one is bullied because of, as you say, deformities or glasses or being obese or any of those
their
things.
clothes.
No. They're bullied because they're perceived by the aggressor to be weak.
Mm-hmm.
And so that aggressor looks for any target that might cause them emotional distress. And so that target could be that you have glasses, or that you're overweight, or that you have a deformity.
But how is that
that's
kid?
not why they do it.
Okay. How is it that kid being annoying then?
Well, what often happens is the kid who's targeted is lacking in some social awareness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they might see two friends jabbing at each other in jest and think, that's how I become a friend of theirs.
Right.
Okay.
So they might approach those kids and be annoying to them, seeing them do that to each other.
Yeah, not trying to be even. Maybe. Because what happens They're
is
kids.
once those two friends say, they are kids, right? They don't know better. And we all do stupid things, myself included, right?
Mm-hmm.
And end up on the news. But so once that kid becomes the target of aggression, they get mad.
Yeah.
And so now they want to return it because it's a power struggle.
Yeah.
But their skills aren't as adept, so their weapon of choice is to annoy the person who's after them.
Yeah.
But the result is, when you engage in power struggle, it just gets worse.
Yeah. It's interesting. I wonder if that, in some circumstances, if that annoying is even something that child recognizes that they're being annoying, but rather they're just seeking like a way of attention or engagement with that, but they may not be intentionally annoying that other kid. Maybe
it's not. It's
or
both.
It could be both.
It's both.
It could be both. Yeah.
As they get older,
it's got to be both.
I was talking to a fifth grader.
That don't know, and
right.
Someone like my youngest definitely knows when he's annoying people.
Yeah.
But like my second oldest, my 12-year-old, he has social issues. Like, he doesn't know what might be annoying, and he is just trying to get attention or to be included.
That's a good point.
And he gets ridiculed for that. And it's like, I have to teach him. So when I was listening to your video, I was like, this is actually really good. Like, I'm thinking, yeah, he is annoying even to me a lot of the time, and I'm not bullying him, but it is my job to teach him. There's certain people who are not going to take that as well, including your brothers.
Yeah. And I think a good kind of analogy that some people would understand is kind of the concept of homeschooled kids.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. I can say this.
I'm just kidding. I know.
Because I was homeschooled.
I know. Yeah, you wore sweatpants.
I wore sweatpants
with a chain until you were like
wallet,
14.
And I thought it was the coolest thing.
I've known kids in public school that do that. So don't feel too bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like, I definitely recognize that there's
true.
social cues that homeschoolers lack, and social cues that I lacked, and my attention seeking from friends and peers, generally speaking, there would be things that would come across annoying, making corny jokes or doing something that you thought was funny, but it may not actually be funny, maybe annoying too.
Well, and when I was saying that, it was not coming from a place of saying, therefore it's their fault. That was the part that people jumped on.
That is what,
right.
And that's not what I was trying to say at all.
Point.
What I was trying to say is, look, you as a parent, you want to give your kids every skill that they need.
Right.
And so social skills are as or more important than academic skills.
It's a great point. Yeah.
It's not their fault. They need to learn.
Yeah, and it doesn't make... And other people were saying, like, you were the bully, saying that bullying was okay. Right. And you were trying to protect the bully. I was like, no, I think... Even when I watched it the first time, I was like, there's a lot of times it's frustrating. It's frustrating as a parent, but there may not be anything you can do about the bully. But if there's anything that you can do to help your kid avoid that, then you want to know what that is. You don't want to just like try to continue to go after the bully. Use every
and the hard part too is that in a school, in a middle school or grade school, high school, whatever, it's such a intense environment for that situation to take place for those kids. And so in the intense in the way like these are their social peers, and these are the people that they feel valued by or hurt by. And so like they can brush something off and they know their family always loves them, or hopefully in some situations, but like that's in a school in particular, not having social skills is amplified the effects of the way you feel bullied, I guess.
Well, and the most important thing you can do to help your kid avoid being that target is that they not see themselves or project to the world that they are emotionally weak and needy.
Yeah.
But you can't teach them to pretend. You have to teach them to actually not be emotionally weak and needy.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I feel called to do.
That's cool.
And that's why there were a lot of calls for my job to end and other things, and it didn't, and I'm glad of that.
Even at one point I got brought into it.
You did?
Yeah, remember? You're like, did someone message you?
Oh,
like,
yes.
People thought that I was trying to stalk people for you.
Yeah.
I'm like, no.
Oh, the internet.
I have way better things to do.
But the nice thing was, we had dozens of letters of support come our way.
That's awesome.
Or actually come to the school board.
It's like the entire population of your town.
Could be close to it. And that was really nice. But it also, even still, it made it clear that I had to decide, was I going to continually, because if I'm going to say what matters and what people need to hear, then sometimes people are going to get mad.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I had to decide if I was going to continually draw both my community and my school and my staff into that ringer.
Right.
Which eventually becomes a distraction from them to just do the good work of teaching.
Right.
And me of being a principal.
Right.
So I made the hard choice, and it became clear that I needed to step out of that. So I have all this stuff on the table that I'm pursuing.
So
how did they take that?
Who's they?
Like your staff and people that you work with.
That you were leaving.
It was difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really difficult. I mean, it's been, I would honestly say it's been the honor of my life to lead those people.
Right.
So to get back a little bit to that other topic that we just mentioned, like helping your kids not be emotionally weak, or emotionally lacking skills of awareness,
right?
Is that I want to kind of talk about, is that what your book is just coming out? Is that address that in your book in particular?
For sure. Yeah. Well, so
can you give us some tips on what are those things that you feel like, are there some highlights that you've thought about, like towards
just read the book, guys?
Yeah. But I think that a good way of advertising that would be to tell us a little bit about some of those tips.
No, I'm just joking.
Okay.
No, absolutely.
There was another podcast.
I know. That's kind of what I was alluding to. Gotcha. But yes.
So the book is a diagnostic tool as much as it is like a tips and tricks,
Okay.
Right.
In other words, how do you understand the place where your kid is at and how they think about themselves and others? So it sort of lays out, and I think in space, right, and spatially, and so it lays out vertically kind of levels of your child's mindset. So are they in the middle? Are they at this attention-seeking place where they're needy and insecure and fearful, in which that's a place of opportunity for you to both build them up and use creativity and purpose to kind of draw them into a stronger mindset of what I call problem-solving mindset, a way of thinking. But if you're not careful, and even if you are, oftentimes, as they grow up, especially in that competitive comparison environment of school, which I think is often an advantage for homeschool, because I've met many homeschoolers who have made it through adolescence and they don't have the nagging fear of rejection by your peers that I was always haunted by in middle school and beyond. It was like, oh, you're not afraid of anyone. You're just yourself. And wouldn't that be nice?
That the homeschoolers that didn't go to
that never went to public school, and therefore they never acquired this, like, if I do that, I'll get made fun of. Right. Which I always, as a kid, thought about and worried about.
Maybe that's right.
So you're saying there's advantage to not going to public school?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
The disadvantage is that you don't learn through trial and error the social, navigating the social atmosphere and complexity. But at any rate, if you don't support them, or even if you do, oftentimes they'll fall into a mindset or mentality of struggling for power. And they have this question of value that is fundamental to all people.
And it's
do I matter?
So the times I've been to Luke's house, I have the advantage of seeing this diagram in person. Yeah. And it's ever evolving on this old, it's a chalkboard, right?
Like, it is.
I love and I respect that you have this chalkboard in your kitchen.
In our kitchen,
or at least it was there. I don't know if it is now.
It's still there. Oh yeah.
I've tripped on it a few times and hurt my foot.
We got it from like a math or physics graduate student.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Who finished his PhD and sold it on Craigslist.
It looks like it's out of an old
really
school movie.
random side bunny trail about that chalkboard. So.
Yeah.
Did you know that there's this like highly sought after chalk that comes only from Japan, and they just stopped producing it, and so like people are spending like an absurd amount of money for this specific chalk because it writes the cleanest, it doesn't smear, and then you can take it off. It writes the cleanest, it's the smoothest, and you can take it off. But like people are spending like thousands on this specific small boxes of chalk.
Figure out how to make it, or
mathematicians are probably spending.
They're the ones. They're hoarding
physicists and mathematicians.
These college level professors are hoarding it, and then they're selling it for like absurd amount of money right now on like eBay and other Craigslist and stuff. It's crazy. I just saw
that's hilarious.
A Dig episode about it. It was really crazy. So sorry, side note, but you got a cool chalkboard.
Well, yeah. So what I was gonna say though is like this diagram, like it was ever evolving, and I'm assuming it still kind of is, but it's probably more solidified now because of the book and everything. But the swinging, that's the pendulum.
The pendulum.
Okay, yeah. So
that's at the bottom,
right?
And that's the power.
That's what I love about this diagram. Like, and maybe we could get a picture of it or something. But and post it. But it like works its way one direction, then up, like to build the kid up, and it's fascinating to like stand and like Luke's brain in front of this thing.
Well, and what I found is, at the pendulum, you're struggling between yourself and others, and you have this pendulum because you swing from one to the other, where you want to make yourself control yourself, or you give up on that and you decide you're going to control others. And it actually is really similar to an addiction cycle of shame and blame. And I've kind of played with that model, and I didn't invent it. I've read a lot and attribute a lot of different folks, but I put it all together into this one idea.
Yeah, like puzzle pieced it.
Yeah. So at the top, instead of a pendulum, is like a balanced scale where you're at peace with yourself and others, and you're still growing, but there's a contentment to it.
It's like self-love.
And the question, it is in some ways.
Okay.
But what you want to do is that question of value that drives the whole thing. You want to be able to train your kids to put it down. And recently, I've been reading and talking a lot with friends about the process of creativity from both artists and scientists and other places. How do you look at something in a new way? And there's consistently talk of this this mindset of selfless purpose that sparks in you creative freedom. That as long as your ego is in the way,
you can't do it.
It blocks. And that's why artists so often get frustrated when people sell out. They choose money and fame and glory.
I gotcha.
Because that's a signal that they're pursuing ego instead of pursuing the truth. Because real art and science is declaring the truth.
Right.
Yeah.
Like what's the name of the guy that had the paint Bamp? What's his name? He had the art gallery sell a painting, and then somebody paid like $20 million for it, and it started shredding.
Oh yeah,
yes.
Banksy or
Banksy.
I can't remember,
Banksy.
But yeah,
thank you. Yeah,
that's
close.
As soon as it got bought, it just shredded itself. But then
it was
broke
built into
and
the frame.
Stopped.
But they're saying that
it
is
was deliberate.
It's now worth more.
It's now worth more because it shredded it. It's even more of an art piece.
I saw someone they had a T-shirt of that drawing, and it was like,
was it shredded?
Cut up the front.
Oh, that's hilarious.
That is awesome.
Oh,
so is that too like why? Like my dad's good friend is a therapist or a psychotherapist is what he is, and does a lot of art therapy and gets people to engage in that. And creativity helps them to break that shame cycle of addiction and everything.
Yeah. We've discovered that in the class.
Okay.
In classrooms, that if you give someone either creativity or purpose, you can take this kid that's all over the map and say, I really need your help. And suddenly it's like they settle in and they're okay. And part of that is someone significant to them gave them value by trusting them with something. Yeah. So you're settling that question of value. But then the purpose helps them to move past it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So the process of helping your kids or yourself, because one of the things I've really found is that it's not about kids. Like we're all on that spectrum.
Oh yeah.
Right. We all get into the insecure neediness. We all fall
kids
down.
And us. Yeah.
Yeah. It's universal human experience. And I worried that it wasn't. I thought because I went to Sierra Leone and I was teaching a class there, and I worried that it wouldn't relate. And I showed it to them. And it was a group of church leaders, and they all were like, "No, that's true."
That's awesome. That's
too.
cool, cross-cultural.
Yeah, and well, and like the poorest people on earth, you think, well, maybe they're too busy worrying about food and water. They don't worry about their
why
ego.
would their head be this hard in the clouds, thinking about this abstract concept when really they're like, we're struggling to eat, bro.
Right.
We're not thinking about these diagrams right now.
It's no joke. It's no joke.
That's really cool that they were able to appreciate that and see value in that, and it's relatable.
So one of the things I'm developing right now is a training to give both the teachers and professionals about how to build a ladder to help people go up.
Yeah.
Right.
How to climb up
and build that strength, that personal resilience. Because what we're finding is it's not just kids who are crumbling under the weight of stress and anxiety. It's adults. It's community. It's all over the place. And so that help is needed far and wide. And that's part of what's drawn me away from just the K-12 environment to go wider.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
Dude.
Just so you can find your purpose.
I mean, I found it. I'm excited. Yeah, without a doubt.
That is exciting. It's a little scary too.
Oh man. The comfort of a government pension and a government job is it's terrifying to depart from. Absolutely.
So you what do things look like? I mean, that comes to a close soon.
Mm-hmm.
And then
this is the last week of school coming up.
Wow.
And then another week after that, and I'm done.
And then the real work begins.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's been beginning. I wrote the book in 4 months over the winter.
And people could pre-order that.
They can. Yeah.
Okay.
At my website.
What's it called?
LukeZedwick.com.
Can they now though? We were discussing that. But
you can. You'd have to pay through PayPal.
What's the book called?
Okay. It's called Problem Solvers.
Problem Solvers.
Yeah.
Awesome.
An educator's insight.
LukeZedwick.com. And eventually coming to Audible, right?
Yeah. The audiobook. I might have to use your studio here or just steal some of these sound
with his actual voice. We did clarify that.
Yeah, we did offer to throw our own voices.
Like we were just going to do every other word, Curtis and I.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be an interesting audiobook.
That'd be awesome. We could do like a popcorn read. I don't know if you guys remember. Well, homeschoolers.
Yeah.
In elementary, right? The teacher will read and then stop reading, and then the class has to say the word. And that's how you make sure they're still with you.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
That's what that's called?
Dude, speaking of teachers, did you hear about that crazy drama that went down in Texas?
Oh, no.
About there was a teacher.
The spaceship one?
No. We'll talk about that, though. But there's a teacher that got fired from her high school because she sent a tweet to President Trump because like a abnormally high percentage of her students were illegal immigrants.
Okay.
And she was asking, and she's saying because of this, illegal immigrants, there's also a lot of drug dealing going on campus and a lot of interactions with, nefarious
what kind
people.
Of school?
The teacher was saying.
The teacher was saying this.
Okay.
And
what
she was
age were
tweeting
these
this
kids?
to Trump.
High school?
High school.
Yeah.
Oh, I was in my head. It was like I was still stuck in elementary,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Why are these kids dealing drugs?"
No. Yeah. Definitely not grade school. Not grade
Just
school.
clarifying for my own imagination because
Totally.
it was getting a little wild in there.
Totally. No, but she sent a tweet to President Trump asking for him to help her with the situation.
Yeah. How close is she to retirement is the question.
I don't know.
There's a point, when you see it.
She's
probably
super close now.
She looks a little on the older side.
Closer than she's ever been.
Yeah, she looks older. But she sent this tweet and she said, President Trump, help us. We have so many illegal immigrants at our school. We have, she says, there's drugs found and they're not doing anything about it. And she says, you promised to drain the swamp, help us deal with these illegal immigrants and these illegal students. And so the school board voted to fire her because she sent these tweets to Trump.
Right.
So now she's suing, obviously, because she
First
doesn't
Amendment.
agree. Yeah, this is my freedom of speech.
Yeah.
She doesn't agree that she should be able to have a view on something that's illegal. So
seems like a weird way to communicate that.
it does, but
to tweet that out.
Yeah.
the drama.
And yet, isn't it normal now?
I mean, it is.
You want him to listen.
What did I text you the other day? I was scrolling through Twitter and there's our president tweeting. I was like, it's just really weird to sit here and ponder a world that we live in where our president is tweeting.
Oh yeah, no, it's disturbing.
Well, even before him, just the fact that Twitter made headlines. People on Twitter are mad because, and then they...
Yeah.
Like, why is that news? That's not news. People are mad. Who cares?
Yeah, they're always mad.
How does Twitter become the thing that hits the headline?
Yeah.
Dude, but the drama with this issue surrounds the idea of, should a teacher be able to keep her job if she is not fully 100% supporting the students that she has on campus? Like, is she having maybe biased opinions towards these students, whether they're legal or illegal? Is it her place to have concern about that issue?
Right.
And then, should she be allowed to be fired because she's voicing her concerns and statements? That's a can of worms for y'all.
I'll tell you the administrator perspective.
Yeah.
Right?
What's your
Yeah.
I want to hear an administrator perspective.
And that is that when you can't do your job anymore, you can't have your job. And that's just it.
And what about that tweet shows you she can't do her job?
It doesn't. But what might happen, or what I think those administrators would argue, is that if the environment of her classroom is now so hostile that the kids can't learn, then how can she be the teacher?
Okay.
And that's the power of people taking offense is displayed right in that moment. Because that's how, we often, at least I do, complain that people get offended too easily.
Right.
Why do they do it? Well, there's a political power to getting offended.
Right.
That if just one person is angry, you can write them off. But if it's a significant percentage of your class can no longer function because of the emotional strain.
Right.
And that's not so. It's not. I'm not exaggerating or being sarcastic. Like, there are a lot of people in that space around political issues.
Well, and my issue with it is I would say I would lean to disagree with this teacher's opinions towards her students and the place that she was kind of at. I'm not on that side. Mm-hmm. However, what I have a difficult time with is the fact that, say if it was something that was not so inflammatory, I guess,
to put it lightly, if politically is still a taboo, like she was saying something like, that wasn't quite as derogatory. But what I'm trying to say is, I don't like the idea of a teacher being able to be fired over something that she said that wasn't necessarily illegal or harmful towards anybody else.
Right.
So it's like, where does that line cross? Where does that seems like it's too easy, I guess.
Well, that's why I think it's interesting, your answer of if they're an ineffective teacher and cannot do their job, then...
But it doesn't matter how good of a teacher she is,
or
how good her reviews are,
or if or how good or bad what that issue was that she caused.
Even if she was right, that doesn't matter.
Yeah,
right. That's so what I find interesting about your answer.
Yeah, it's a super interesting answer.
And we don't know. We're not there. Like what that could look like. If it was, say, it was an elementary school, the kids don't know any better. But it's a high school. Like, who knows? I mean, it could be pandemonium.
Yeah.
Well, and we've taken many. At least I have taken many law classes.
Because you're going to be a lawyer.
Yeah. because
on the subject of
one of the things of education, right? And one of the things they make really clear is that the First Amendment does not apply in the same way at school as it does elsewhere.
Oh.
Because the priority of school is education. You have your First Amendment rights out there. In fact, there was a really famous case where I think it was the Olympic torch was going through town, and it was going in front of a high school. And I don't remember where this was. I want to say it was Alaska. Okay, so the kids were excused from class to go out and see the torch go by, and a kid crossed the street where there was also a crowd,
right,
and held up a sign that said "Bong hits for Jesus," so that he could get on TV. Right? Obvious high school thing.
Why not? That's classic.
He got suspended. His parents sued. They got backed by probably the ACLU or something like that. Right. And it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said if you can't demonstrate a significant disruption of the educational process, then the First Amendment still applies. So he won.
What a precedence.
Right. So that's always the rule.
Whoa.
If I'm going to suspend a kid, I have to be able to demonstrate in cases of First Amendment.
Right.
Now with teachers, it's harder.
Right.
Because they're employees and they represent the district.
Right.
That's really interesting. That's crazy.
That is cool.
I like learning about that.
It is I understand where you're coming from, Curtis. Is like, well, even if I don't agree with her, I would like to say that we live in a place where she can voice her opinions, even though it's a little odd, probably unorthodox way to go about voicing your opinions, tweeting them to the president.
Yeah,
I get all that, but you put it all together. We just don't know what the climate is there.
It would be like if I was working and treating patients, and I sent a tweet to Trump saying, "Hey, I'm tired of treating illegal immigrants. They're doing a lot of they're bringing a lot of harm to my community, and I don't want to provide them health care. Take care of these illegal immigrants for me real quick."
Yeah.
That would be like, I'm trying to imagine what my employer would do about that.
But you're not a government employee.
No, I'm not.
So the government's not firing you.
Right.
And that's where the First Amendment, the First Amendment is the government cannot restrict your speech. But if your boss said that's not how we do things and fired you that day,
so that's less of an issue.
There's nothing
But because you're a government employee.
Yeah.
Okay.
The government can't restrict.
And you also make a statement about your employer.
Yeah. Right. So I would have less protection in that.
The state
area,
the state governments are employers of education, not the federal government.
Right.
Yeah, and I think an employer should be able to do that. If you're a private employer, I think if you don't like what your employee is, I don't know, if you feel like that employee is casting a negative view towards people that you're trying to care for, then I think the employer should be able to toss you.
I would say so.
But in the government role, it's trickier.
Well, in school, everybody has to go. I mean, there's homeschool, but
right.
I don't know why homeschool keeps coming up.
It's because you really don't like me. That's what it is.
I don't tell people this a lot, but that's true. No, I was going to say I was homeschooled as well. Up till third grade, I started.
Nice.
Yeah.
Started public.
Give you some credit
I started
for that.
at
some credit for that.
Private school in third grade and then public from then on.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. Oh, man. All this school talk.
Dude, it's a lot of school talk.
Makes me have to think a lot.
Yeah.
I need to go to the restroom real quick, and I'm going to come back, and I want to talk about this crazy thing that happened in Africa.
Wait.
Oh, no.
What do you mean?
Africa's pretty big.
It is, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you guys know, but one or two things have happened in Africa.
In Africa? Wait. One or two things have happened in Africa?
Just today, in fact.
Way to leave it like that.
I know.
Oh, man.
Speaking of Africa, I get to go back in a couple weeks.
Yeah, so that was actually one question that I had for you is how could people, how can they help you? How can they partner with you? Is that, I don't know what that looks like for you.
Yeah, so part of what I'm going to do is things like this trip to Africa or my trip to Indonesia is I don't know if it's nonprofit exactly.
And this is your second time this year?
Yeah, the second time in 6 months because I went in March and now I'm going to go again.
Right. Which that one was kind of like a last minute.
It was. Thing. So I went a year and a half ago and assisted in teaching a course for church leaders. Okay. I just had wanted to go for a long time and knew that this was an opportunity where I could.
That wasn't your 40th, right?
That was my 40th birthday.
Yeah. I remember watching that video and I was like, okay, Luke's up to something here.
Yeah.
This is going to go somewhere beyond just this.
Well, and that could have been the beginning of all. Well,
I think it was.
Yeah, because it was.
Because you said your catchphrase in there. You talked about doing good work, and then your sign off was like, "This is Luke Zedwick, and I hope this makes a difference."
I hope it helps. Yeah, my name is Luke. This is Parent Academy. I hope it helps.
I hope it helps.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah. I mean, that's really the call.
Yeah.
I think it's the call of leadership is to find the people that you're given and help them. I think that's it.
I don't know if we we'll continue to go into the Africa stuff and
Yeah.
how people can help for a second, but it's kind of backing up just to kind of gain some clarity, and maybe I missed it, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
What made that jump from being a teacher to wanting to be in leadership in the faculty?
Well, at the same time as I was a teacher, I was also in church leadership.
Okay.
And as a young man, I thought that's where I would end up. I thought I would be in church leadership.
Okay.
As a career. I
Okay.
thought teaching was like this layover, and then I was going to end up. And it didn't work. It didn't work out
Yeah.
for so many reasons.
Yeah.
And many of them were my own.
It's a whole other podcast.
Oh man. So I just kind of doubled down and taught and invested into my community. And then one day, my principal, who I really looked up to, brought me this form and said, "Here, you need to be principal."
Really?
And like the program starts in a few weeks, so you got to hurry.
What was the program?
It was the University of Oregon Administrator Licensure Program.
And how long did that take?
It takes a little over a year, I think.
Okay.
If I remember right. I mean, it was a little while ago, 10 years
So it
ago.
wasn't like you go get your master's or...
I had a master's.
Oh, you
Yeah.
did at that
I had a
point.
master's in
Okay.
education. I was a teacher at the middle school level.
Okay.
And so you do the licensure program, and I could have opted for a second master's, but who needs two masters? I don't know.
No.
Somebody does, but not me. So it would have meant writing more papers.
Yeah. That's
So
always
over the
what turned me
course
off
of the
to it.
next year, basically all my free time at school was spent in the office being like an intern principal.
Okay.
And then a couple times, like my principal was out of the building, and so I got a sub and sat in her office
Yeah.
and supervised the school and learned, that process.
Wow.
And what I like to say is the best parts of teaching is what I get to do as a principal.
Mm.
In teaching, you have a group of kids in your class. You see the potential in them, and maybe you see potential that they don't.
Yeah.
And then you push them to rise, right? You give them a vision, and you know them each by name, and you call them up. And that's really what leadership at school level is too.
It's just finding people's
It's your staff.
like strength
And then it's those handful of high-fly kids that can't make it in the structure of the classroom that
So,
you end up with.
as you come to a close here,
Yeah.
I know that we're like drifting further away from my original question, but as we come like to the close of that part of your career and your path,
Right.
what is, like, looking back, what's been the most difficult situation to deal with? Was it this YouTube craze news thing, or was it
Yeah,
something
I mean,
else?
the first couple years, having never lived in a small town, it was just a lot of conflict. That's the one thing. When you're in conflict with 12-year-olds, it's not that difficult.
right?
But when you're in conflict with adults who make it personal when you discipline their kid
Yeah.
without their permission, right? I mean, they did send them to school, but
Like mostly like,
Yeah,
like
it is
like
technically with their
mostly
permission.
spanking them and some over the knee kind of
is that the
action,
Texas
or-
story? It's still legal in Texas.
Is it still legal in
man,
Texas?
I've met a superintendent once
Right on.
a trip.
No way.
He was telling me about spanking high schoolers.
Wait, whoa. Like, how long ago is this?
When I was still a teacher, I went on a East Coast, like I took a bunch of kids to the East Coast for an educational trip.
Took them
And-
through Texas so you could spank them, and then
Well,
took
so
'em
they
home.
did this training where they flew me for a weekend as a first-time chaperone of one of these trips. They flew
Okay.
me to New York City.
Oh,
And we
wow.
did like a little whirlwind weekend. And it was all the other first-time chaperones from different schools around the U.S.
Okay.
One of them was a superintendent of a small district in Texas.
Oh
And,
my gosh.
oh, man, he had stories. And
That's
we were
awesome.
all kind of like cringing / laughing. Like,
we get in trouble for talking about this even.
yeah.
What if he went back and he's like, I can't believe they bought that.
Right.
Like,
Well, there are. I want to say there's more than a dozen schools in the U.S. that are still legal. States rather, not schools.
right.
Idaho, it's legal. That doesn't mean they do it everywhere,
Right.
but it's an
yeah.
option, and it's a kind of a school board decision at that point.
That's crazy.
That is
That's
in a
crazy.
world where like even people don't want parents to do that.
Wait. So
Yeah,
you may have just said this. Sorry.
that's all right.
But
welcome back.
Can the decision to be able to spank a child,
Mhm.
is that, you said, is it school board that decides that, or is it the state themselves? The state has to make legislation allowing whether or not you can do swatting.
Everything's
to get
legal till there's a law that it's not, right? So the state has to make a law banning
making it illegal. Okay.
So there are several states
I
that
just
have
thought of
not.
a
Is
lot
it
of things I
illegal
need to go
in
do.
Oregon?
It is illegal in Oregon.
It's
Correct.
illegal.
So yeah, so if you put your
we
hands
can't
on
really
a
do
kid
anything.
in an aggressive way, you lose your teaching license, and you
Okay.
could fall under criminal.
Gotcha. Wow. Well,
prosecution.
So just dealing with that pushback from dealing with kids and stuff like that is one of the hardest. Is there like a situation that stands out to you?
It was just like the unending conflict. I remember one parent of a kiddo who, you get there and the staff come and they kind of warn you about kids.
Yes. I think every place you work, there's a warning about someone or something that you must take into account.
So they warned me about this kid, and he had hit someone had done so several times.
Right.
And so you get to this point where you're calling this parent every time. And I had fallen under the idea that anytime a kid gets in trouble and sent to me, I have to call. The parents want to know. And this process helped me learn that some parents don't want to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could imagine.
And so when you've called that parent who's okay with their kid hitting people and said they're in trouble for hitting people, they get frustrated on the 4th or the 5th call this month. Right?
Oh my gosh.
And so one parent that I'll always remember, because small towns assume that when the principal comes, they're going to come for a couple years and they're going to head out. Right. This is the stepping stone, especially because our small town is near several larger cities.
Okay.
Right.
And I came from a larger city. I had never lived in a small town at all.
Yeah. And
so she kind of made that remark, you're here for a couple of years. We don't really care what you think. And she just kind of made it personal.
Yeah.
And you get, being on the phone, I got to this point where my adrenaline just shoots into my ears and I'm just sitting there like.
Your ears are ringing.
Yeah. And when I get that way, I get less verbal. Like I just kind of say, okay.
Shut down.
Yeah. All right. Well, I just wanted you to know. And it was one of those moments of clarity where I realized, well, one, I'm not calling her. Right? I'm not calling that mom when this kid hits people. I'm going to deal with it.
Right.
But she doesn't want to be part of that process. And that's okay. It doesn't change how I deal with it. So.
Right. You just were letting her know.
Right. Yeah. And then the other thing was understanding that if I don't invest in this community, it's for nothing. Yeah. And so we had moved there, but we're renting. And now we have bought right in town.
Right.
And we're committed. And even as I transition out of being the principal, the question I get asked is, are you leaving town? That's the question they want to know. Do you really care about us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You say, yeah, I'm out. Peace.
No, I say, man, we got a sweet house on the creek. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah. You have a cool place.
Yeah.
What's the most disturbing thing you've confiscated from a student or teacher?
Nothing jumps to mind.
Nothing too crazy?
Little pocket knives and
but never
guns.
Never like Glocks or
No.
Dude, you hear there's a new Glock coming out? Glock 46?
What?
Yeah. There's a new Glock 46 coming out.
What is it? Like,
it has a new barrel. Instead of it being a barrel where it pops up, it rotates. And then it also has a new there's a couple other new functions to it. But yeah, it was kind of interesting. I just saw an article about it. But
that reminds me of a fantastic
story. Sounds like
Desert
Desert Eagle.
My wife bought a little screwdriver, like an electric one, because the one she had disappeared. And I'm sure it's in a drawer somewhere. We have way too many drawers.
You do have a lot of drawers in your house.
I know. It was sitting on the counter, and my youngest son, who's in 4th grade, he's 9, he's like, Dad, what is this? And I just looked at him and said, oh, that's a laser. It's a laser gun.
Laser
gun.
And
he goes, what is it for? Like, well, it's for home defense. It burns people's eyes, and it'll burn through their skin.
Oh,
and I'm just straight-faced to him, and he's like, whoa. And he's looking at it, and then his brother comes by, and he goes, Jude, this is a laser gun. And he totally convinces his brother, and I'm sitting right there.
Yes.
So then I pick it up, and I start looking down the, it's got the little chuck where the screwdriver bit goes in. I'm looking down it. I'm messing with it. And it's not intuitive. It doesn't have a trigger. It's like a button on the top, So I'm looking at it. And they start to get worried, like I'm going to shoot myself.
Like, no, Dad.
And then I finally kind of find the button, and I'm adjusting it, and I go, bzz, and it starts to rotate.
They're like,
oh, Dad.
And he still didn't know that it wasn't a laser gun, right? So
to this day,
a lot of laser guns.
To this day, he's still kind of concerned about.
It happened today, so.
Yeah. Oh, it happened today.
Yeah.
That was very recent.
Very recent.
Yeah.
Dude, have you ever encountered a savant student, or have you ever encountered a student this is a kid that's going to be way beyond?
Yeah.
He's going to be in college. He should be in college right now. He's in elementary school.
Several.
Do you keep a box of toothpicks in your drawer?
What is that?
Just to pick them out and be
how many?
How many?
What movie is that from? I remember it, but I don't remember.
What was it now?
Rain Man.
There you go.
Yeah.
But what is that like? Like when you encounter a kid that's just like a super genius, do you then be like, okay, no, I know there's a special school with kids with extraordinary abilities,
Right.
and we're gonna hook you up
man
with
in a
Professor
wheelchair.
X.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's X-Men.
He has superpowers, but he can't make his own legs move.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So,
for the
what do you
kids
do
that
when you
can't read
encounter a
very
kid
well.
that's like super genius? Do you say, "Hey, I know this academy in this other town. Your son should go there, probably."
So when I was a teacher in Eugene, we had the University of Oregon. So we would get kids up to a certain level. So I would kind of recruit those kids from the elementary level. I would kind of talk to the teacher and find out who they were, and then I would get them kind of self-teaching in the back of my class. So I would have like a pre-algebra course, and then I'd have these
At
six
what? Yeah, sorry, what age?
in middle school.
Okay.
So then I'd have these 6th and 7th graders in the back who were already doing algebra and self-teaching it, and I would dare them. I'd be like, you guys, if you can get, I think you can do algebra and geometry in 1 year.
But they're in a pre-algebra class?
Right, but they're not students in that class. So they're technically enrolled, but they have like a round table in the back of the room. And I said, you guys teach yourselves. I'll come check with you every day. And just
give them a book, or how are they teaching themselves?
Yeah, just hand them the book.
So,
and then I would just go back and say, how's it going? Do you have any questions?
They're homeschooling at school.
In class, yeah. And so I would go back and they'd be like, well, we gave ourselves 42 problems today, but we're only doing every other because there's 84, Like, okay, cool.
Would it be better to have,
Oh my
and I don't know anything about teaching, but in this way, would it be like beneficial to like have a kid, if they are that advanced, to just go to like a calculus class and be learning in calculus
Eventually, because we didn't have, what I was trying to do is get them into the high school before they're in high school, right?
Okay.
And then once they maxed out of the high school courses, we would get them at the U of O, which was right there. Or actually, I think they were going to Lane Community College.
Okay.
And the high school had several kids that were going to Lane for advanced calculus.
Okay, here's a question. Advanced mathematics is something that you encountered with students.
Yeah.
But is there ever like any other specific
So I had one kid
thing other than mathematics that you
I had one kid who was beyond. And it was really interesting because those kids who were really good at math were often, like, if they couldn't get a math topic really quickly, you could see their whole world like in jeopardy.
Oh, wow.
Right? That because they were, that question of value was driving them. Of everyone had told them their whole lives they're really smart. And so, wow, I can't figure out this weird fraction thing. Maybe I'm not smart. And when that's the center of your world, it's easy to crumble under it. And then eventually the repeated stress of that causes a lot of those kids to burn out and quit. You see that with like really, really advanced athletes sometimes too. You'll think, man, this kid has so much potential. He could be in the Olympics. And then he's like a sophomore and he quits.
So he's a mathlete.
Right.
Yeah.
But I had this one kid, he showed up in 6th grade. He was listed as low performing. He was supposed to be in the low performing math class. And he would sit there and talk to you like he was a second year grad student in philosophy.
What?
Yeah, he would just, like, I was telling him that I was reading Ayn Rand. And he's like, oh, I have some thoughts about that. And he started like going on about morality and capitalism and, all this free market economics. And he was like the low math kid, right?
I love that so much.
And
that's so cool, dude.
And he was 11, okay?
Right.
And so the other kids would be like, our teacher last year said he's an old man stuck in a kid's body. And I was like, that sounds right.
Yeah, he wasn't wrong.
So that year I discovered, it was kind of new at the time, Khan Academy, which is this online learning platform.
KHN, like the Wrath of Khan.
KHAN.
Yeah, my kids have done it.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, that's great.
And so in it displayed
it's free too.
Math concepts, absolutely, from all the way from 1+1 basic addition, all the way down in this kind of really cool concept web, all the way down to advanced calculus.
Wow.
So I showed it to my class and I said, this is going to be an add-on. We're going to do this, and sometimes I'll give you an assignment, like everybody needs to know this topic and pass it, because I could see the whole course. I could see the whole class, rather, and all their progress. So everybody needs to pass this course by Thursday, and then we're going to go over it. And I was trying out this idea of what's called a flipped classroom, where they learn on their own, and then we work on it together, instead of teaching them in class and having them work on it alone.
Sure.
And you get a lot of really cool stuff when you flip the classroom, right?
That sounds way more fun.
That kid, right, the little genius old man kid, he scrolls down to the bottom, clicks on the calculus and says, I'm going to try this. And I was like, well, that's like high school calculus, right? The chain rule.
He's 11.
He's 11. He can't do it, of course, right? But he gets determined. And this was in September, October. We were just beginning the year. And what I could see at the time, the website had a graph of the kids' progress. As time goes by, every time they pass a section, they step up. And I followed this kid. That was my last year at that school, and I became a principal. I would go back and log in, and I could still see him progressing.
What?
By the end of that year, he had finished algebra and geometry. And he was contesting. He was actually, by the end of that summer, so the summer after his 6th grade year, he was passing the calculus topics.
Wow.
But then he had to go back and say, now the school is saying you need to be in Algebra 1. And if I had been there, I would have said, I'll teach him Algebra 1. Because at the time they had here's the 30 tests you need to pass to say you get the high school credit for Algebra 1.
Yeah.
I would have just given him a test a day for 30 days, and then we would have gone to geometry. But I wasn't there. And so my principal called me later and was like, I wanted to kill you. Because not only him, but all these other kids showed up and said, we want to be accelerated. And the parents were like, we already did all this online, and Mr. Z said he would help us. And she was like,
oh, no.
I want to take a bat and hurt you.
So no other teacher would be willing to do that, or what?
Well, it was not within the system that was established, right?
Okay.
I was doing it. And what I had told them mistakenly was, next year I'll help you get through.
Gotcha.
And I wasn't there.
Gotcha.
So it was my mistake.
Whoops.
Oops.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
crap.
kind of like when
But I didn't know.
Michael Scott says that he'll pay for all these kids to go to college because he's going to be a millionaire, and then they all show up and he's like,
Yeah, that was so
But Ryan
funny.
gets the
Scott's
iPod.
Tots or whatever it was, or
Oh yeah.
I don't remember. So I have this image, speaking this combines guns and the metric system.
Ooh.
But so it says U.S. stands alone against the metric system. And then below, someone commented and said, yet when it comes to guns, 9mm sounds better than .354331 inches. God bless America.
Merca. God bless Merca, is what it says.
God bless America.
Merca.
Heart, not emoji, but ASCII text.
That's funny.
Anyway.
Dude, so earlier...
That made me think of that picture. I saw it earlier this week.
No, that makes sense. I like it, and I would say that we need a discussion, but I think we should definitely get rid of our current measuring system and go all metric
What?
for sure.
So the UK, or at least England, they use miles, feet, yards.
They use kilometers.
Are you going to take it off that picture, or you just let people just keep reading that?
I think they really need to soak it in.
Okay.
No,
That's cool. It's our show.
They use miles. Like their road signs are in miles per hour.
I thought
they do?
In England?
Yeah.
I thought they're in kilometers per hour.
Canada is, but no, England.
I'm not a big fan of that. When you go into Canada, I can't remember what it is. Like my brother-in-law, he's like,
do you hate the French?
He won't read
the French on the signs or the metric on the signs?
No, the metric on the signs. And I can't remember what he said. Is like, if you divide it by a third and multiply by 2, or
you get to a mile per hour.
Some weird thing that kind of got you close, but would still get you a ticket. Like
it's still it wouldn't help you still.
No,
your speedometer has KPH on it. You just have to look at the little number.
Not all of them do.
Really?
For a long time, actually. My sister had it was a Honda or an Acura.
I was driving a Rambler, Your Honor.
It only had kilometers.
Nice.
Like, because it was from Canada and she drove it here.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, it only had kilometers.
That's funny.
It was a sweet little car, but yeah.
So going back to extraordinary students.
Yeah.
Like deep down, are you thinking like you were an undiscovered excellent student?
Tag.
Or
no.
Okay.
I do think that many students could have extraordinary capabilities that aren't necessarily tapped into if they were fostered. However, I do not think
Fish needs a bicycle kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I don't think I could have made it in Xavier School, if that's what you're asking.
You don't think
Xavier School?
I probably could have.
Yeah.
So you'd have to throw out the concept of IQ. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
That IQ is...
It's, I think, well...
or at least general intelligence.
Yeah. I think there's certain things that people would specialize in and have extraordinary skills in that aren't necessarily fostered because of the way the school system's set up. But the school system is set up to allow you to have skills in all, or not all areas, but a broad range of areas.
Yeah.
And if you neglect those areas, then you would probably have a difficult time functioning in society in some ways. So
I heard somebody describe it as intelligence is not about being smarter in the sense... I mean, it's interesting. Elementary kids, when they say smart, they mean I know more things.
Yeah.
Right? But it doesn't actually... equate to either one. What it equates to is how fast you can learn things. So everybody can learn the stuff in the end, but the people with a high IQ learn it faster, therefore they're farther ahead.
For IQ tests. Yeah, but I think there's extraordinary intelligence in like that isn't necessarily qualified as IQ.
Mm-hmm.
Like extraordinary intelligence in art, like the ability to draw a picture and have like a natural understanding in depth of how to paint a phenomenal 3D realistic photo that is just it's an ingrained intelligence that this person has or skill that this person has, but it's not necessarily something that you'd be able to run on an IQ test.
There's the whole the book Outliers. Did you ever read that or hear about it?
I did hear about it, but I haven't read it.
Huh.
So he makes the argument, it's the 10,000 hour rule is what famously came out of that book.
Yeah. That.
Yes.
Which is the idea that there isn't talent, there's just people who started sooner. So some savant, right? Mozart might have done his 10,000 hours by the age of 12, but you started playing the piano and didn't practice very much. So it took you to the age of 25 to get your 10,000 hours.
Right.
Or maybe you never got it because it's 10,000 hours of persistent and focused effort to improve.
I think for the majority of people that's true. That's applicable.
But then there's some people who are just like, they're just good at
it doesn't take them
a lot of things or just
become
one thing really well.
Expert level. Yeah.
Well, there's carryover skills.
True.
There's that
right?
too.
I remember seeing a thing where Will Smith played Muhammad Ali in a movie a long time ago.
Right.
And the trainer for Muhammad Ali trained Will Smith. And he said Will Smith was a better natural athlete than Muhammad Ali. But Muhammad Ali was a better boxer because that's all he did and all he cared about. It's what he loved.
Yep.
Right.
But those crossover skills can carry you through when you go to other venues.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I've been trying to find a way to bring this topic up, but
Just
I can't find
just
a good
hard
way.
cut.
Wham. Dude. So I was just fascinated because there's a video and
Is this
I posted
Africa thing?
Yeah, I posted it.
Lots of things have happened.
There's a video that we're gonna post that you guys need to watch, and it's about.
Is this the 60 kids?
The city, yeah, it's about 60 kids that lived in this small city called Ruwa in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
And this event took place in 1994. Okay. And 60 kids were in school.
I did watch this video.
So
we'll post this link.
They were all in school, and the teachers coincidentally were having a conference meeting in the next room.
And all the kids were outside.
And the
playing.
kids were most of them were outside.
This was 1994, so that was okay then.
Yeah, and it's Africa where they don't necessarily have
Africa,
the same rules.
Today.
That's true.
All the time.
So 60 kids were out in the play area, hanging out, having fun.
Yeah.
And then they started hearing a really strange noise, and all the kids looked over in between this wooded area, and they saw a giant silver cylindrical football shaped kind of craft.
Okay.
And they saw I think it was two beings, I could be wrong, but all of the kids identified it the same exact way. The beings they identified the same exact way.
How old were the kids?
They were middle school. They were
it doesn't say here.
As someone who interviews kids to determine facts on a daily basis.
Yeah. No, but what's really interesting.
But keep going.
Here's one of them.
Yeah, that's
okay.
That's so that'd be middle school.
She looks honest.
Yeah, she looks honest.
I trust her.
But
there's a bunch of them. That's
in 1994,
60 plus kids are all saying the same thing.
In 1994,
that's actually hard
in
to
a
do.
room together.
No, they weren't in a room together necessarily at the same time. A psychiatrist goes from Harvard, went to this school and interviewed these students in multiple settings, environments.
It gets better.
And he's talking to them. And he's like, "What was it that you saw?" And he asks all these different students while they're at school what they saw and what they experienced. And he starts asking, "What did you feel?" And now, did that feeling come from something after you saw these beings, or did that feeling come from something that someone told you why you should be feeling?
How much
that?
after the fact were the interviews?
Right. I don't know exactly how much after the fact.
It was pretty close, but there's two interviews, so they redid the interviews when they were adults.
Okay, yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay.
So in 1994, this Harvard.
So this is in 94.
Psychiatrist.
And in 2016, they redid the interviews.
Interviews them, and he comes to the conclusion all of these kids have consistent stories. They're not. There's some minor discrepancies, like how tall they were, or different, but they all had the similar shaped eyes, similar shaped bodies. and they all had similar like feeling of like these beings aren't happy, or there's something that's we're not doing that's right.
Mm-hmm.
And the researcher or whoever this was that made this article back then, 20 years later, follows up with a majority of these now grown up 30-year-old students, and all of them have the same stories, and none of them say this was something that we imagined or this is something that I made up.
Right.
And they all have consistent stories. Stays consistent with a huge population of students. Now, what I do find ironic is none of the teachers saw it though.
Right.
Well, they were all inside. Well, it says that the experience, like one of the quotes was, he was trying to tell us to look after the planet because there won't be any air. Like it had to do with...
One of the students said that. Like they felt like that's what the...
Like that's what it was about in 94, which wouldn't have been a giant topic then.
Who is it? Not Bob Dole.
Well, about the...
In Africa, they didn't necessarily have climate push at that point. Like global warming.
No, in the mid-90s, it would have been CFCs and the ozone layer. That was the big thing.
What's CFC?
Chlorofluorocarbon
wait.
emissions. Styrofoam.
Yeah, we talked about that last week.
No, nice.
Yeah, we talked about that last week. Yeah. China has huge factories that they're pumping out CFC and nobody's stopping them right now. And there was just a big...
At first I was like, please let this be why they're protesting. Turns out it wasn't. So.
Yeah. But anyway, so really crazy, like as far as students go, like that's a really cool thing to think about, these large group of students all having consistent story that all connected to something extraterrestrial, perhaps.
It would be hard to organize that.
You don't have to organize it.
You just plant an idea. Yeah.
Here's what you do, and I've had this happen so many times because I have to figure out who's lying and who's wrong about what happened and who's telling the truth. Mm-hmm. Right. What happens is a kid sees something or has a story to tell. They tell everyone because they're really agitated and excited about it. And then all of them later will say, I saw it. Not because they're lying, but because they don't disconnect the story someone told. They just say, yeah, this thing happened. It happened. Did you see it? Yeah. Did you see it or did someone else see it? Well, he told me he saw it, but it happened.
Right.
Yeah. So
that is interesting.
The other thing is kids' memories, or all of our memories, are really malleable. And so the more you remember something, the more concrete it becomes.
Oh, totally.
So even if you imagined it, then you became convinced you saw it, 20 years later, you would still be convinced you saw it.
Yeah. I have...
Luke's like, I'm not buying it.
Yeah.
No, I don't not buy it.
I think there's definitely ground for...
What do you think about aliens?
It being...
I don't think about them.
Faked, but
okay.
I think it could have happened too.
Decent rebuttal.
Yeah.
Do you think there are aliens?
I doubt it, but my doubt doesn't change their existence. They either do or don't. But.
What leads to your doubt?
It's Schrodinger's alien.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like an electron location or velocity. What leads to my doubt? A lack of evidence. Yeah, lack of convincing evidence.
But these 60 kids,
and what would qualify as evidence? What would qualify as evidence?
That there's an alien here.
That's a good one.
You can go, let's go see the alien. He's here.
So some evidence for you that to convince yourself of another being would be physical evidence.
Yeah, their presence in space-time.
So do you believe there's enough physical evidence then for your religious belief?
No. I think there is a lot of physical evidence for it, yeah. But I don't require it. I mean, faith, right?
So do you think people just have faith in aliens?
I think there's a faith element to it,
yeah.
But faith is an intrinsic part of the human experience. I mean, it's really interesting, and I've thought about this in terms of the story of Christ. Christ was available and present for everyone to see, and many people did not believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
After his resurrection, he did not make himself available to the public. He only appeared to a limited number of followers. So the question is why? Why would God deliberately restrict access to direct evidence of his supernatural and glorious existence, except that it's within his design that we trust him?
Yeah.
if he's present, you don't have to trust anything. You just
there's a component of faith.
Yeah.
But I guess I would tie back to as far as aliens go. If there's not physical evidence
Right.
that Jesus was a god,
Okay.
currently,
Right.
then I guess your faith that he was God, I don't know why you wouldn't then have the same level of belief that there is aliens.
Well, my faith
Because
in Jesus as God comes from my own experience, but that experience was not physical,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I have and could tell you several stories where I encountered what I attribute to be the manifest presence of God, right? The Spirit of God Himself.
Okay. Yeah.
But none of that was resulting in something that I could video or document.
Right.
Right.
Mm.
So I would think somebody may say the same thing about aliens, though, right? Someone said they had an encounter that they felt.
Yeah.
They felt something behind them. They felt that they had a direct connection. They felt like this internal person, maybe from another, I'm getting out there, but from another dimension was communicating with them in the same way that
it's
someone
very religious.
Yeah, it's
talk of aliens is very religious.
It's
Absolutely.
religious. And so I guess I
So
I
is
think
Sasquatch.
that
It is.
It can be.
Oh my
yeah.
gosh, dude!
Yeah.
We had a family camp out once, and we had rented this whole big campsite for us, and there was no other campsites nearby.
Yeah.
It was down a long dirt road. This guy
Is
shows
this
up.
your Sasquatch story?
This guy shows up,
Yes.
and he says, "I'm here for the Sasquatch convention." And
We're
we're
at a
like,
campsite.
Well,
yeah, at
welcome.
a campsite in the deep woods of Oregon.
You
right?
made it, buddy.
We're like, well, we haven't seen anybody else, but you're here, you know. And it was like, there was nothing else on this road. You had to come here on purpose.
You missed Sasquatch
And we
for
figured
2
out
minutes.
that like the Sasquatch people were coming the next day after we left,
Oh,
or something, right?
okay.
But we got to talking to him, and my father-in-law in particular, who loves to commune,
Oh.
right, in a spiritual way with people.
Yes.
Yeah. And the guy started saying, "Oh no, like I've seen Sasquatch many times, but he doesn't exist on this,
this
dimension.
Sure.
Right? He's a spirit being.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's very religious, for sure.
Oh yeah.
That's interesting.
It's a deep part of the human experience.
Yeah. So I guess it'd be, I guess it's just where you're choosing to put your faith in that situation with aliens, and until there's physical proof, if that's what it requires.
Well, I don't doubt. I don't have any personal experience with aliens. I've heard stories, and they sound fun.
The idea sounds cool.
I wonder if,
Oh, it sounds really fun.
from a spiritual perspective,
Maybe.
right? I wonder if they aren't spirit beings.
Sure. Or beings from another plane of existence,
Which would,
like Sasquatch.
yeah, fall into the same thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Alternate.
That's why they're
universe.
blurry.
Yeah.
Kind of like
interesting.
what was that? The Fringe, when people would jump between the realities, they get blurry.
I love that show.
Yeah.
Dude, that was such a good show. That's hilarious.
You just liked it because in order to get between the two, the guy had to like make his own homegrown LSD and jump in a tank, and then
What?
like
I
zap.
don't remember that.
You don't remember that?
No.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna trip out on this. If you take this, it's gonna give you a psychedelic experience, put you inside this little compression chamber, and poof, you're gonna come out the other side in this other
Maybe I'm
reality.
thinking of a different show.
It's very possible.
Maybe.
Or I'm getting them all mixed up.
It's kind of funny that our seemingly modern structure of drug use so tightly connects to like ancient religious experiences and people's attempts to reach the spirit plane. You know?
Wait, so you're saying it's interesting how drugs have a connection with religions?
Well, they have had for
Yeah. Oh, for
millennia,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that, you know, we think in our modern biohacking, you know, as Jordan likes to do,
Yeah,
um,
I'm all about it.
we think we can reinvent something that's so old
Oh,
by having the technology.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
right. Yeah.
That is an interesting.
There is actually interesting concept that I've heard people
There's a little
talk about
hubris to that. I
with
wonder, you know?
with Moses and the burning bush,
Yeah.
and they believed it was an acacia bush,
Hmm.
and an acacia. I think I'm saying that right. Acacia bush
We'll go
has.
with it. There's
yeah,
no one here to correct
It's
us.
close. It's close. I'm gonna have you look that up for me, Jordan, real quick.
Acacia? Yeah. Right.
Um,
I'll get right on that.
And they found that this bush, when it burns at a certain temperature, it will release MDMA, or not MDMA, DMT.
DMT, yeah. It's
Which
like
is-
MDMA is ecstasy.
Yeah, which is a psychedelic
Yeah.
substance, and this they believe
But
that
is it like eating apple seeds gives you cyanide poisoning? You know what I mean?
no,
Would you have to huff the smoke for
you would
4,000
have,
hours?
You would have to be exposed to the smoke, but I don't know the exact quantity of the smoke that you.
Right.
But it would be enough, they suspect, to actually have some type of hallucinogenic effect.
Right.
So they say that this is something that they correlate with perhaps Moses was close to this burning bush, and then he had this supernatural experience where he talked to this bush that was telling him to take his slippers off.
Yeah.
And but that's something as far as like drugs or substances or medicinal, whatever you call them, therapies were connected with religious views, and that's something that I've heard that's kind of an interesting concept.
Well, it was interesting because I there was an article that I, for some reason, I didn't copy, probably because I was like, there's no way we'd ever talk about that. But there was a recent, like, they were testing some of Shakespeare's original documents, and they found cannabis was like laced in, like, so clear. I mean, it's
like he had rubbed, like there was like cannabis oils or something like that,
or that he was like smoking it while riding, like.
I wonder,
or just using it.
I wonder if
but
cannabis was in Europe at that time.
I don't know.
I don't even know when cannabis. I mean, obviously,
where does it originate?
Right, where does it originate? I would imagine it's South America is where
I think
want to
it's been
say.
Around for,
there's the J.R. Tolkien
quote. Long time
about the weed. You remember the end of what was it? The second movie when the tower and the two little guys are like smoking weed and hanging out.
Was that
Gandalf makes a joke about it? That was in the book.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's. I wouldn't say that like most or all religious stuff is around that, but I think that people do actually try to recreate it that way. And maybe there is. I mean, we don't know, but maybe there's some connection there, or
and religion is,
and maybe not to a good thing.
I think religion is always a combination of at least the spiritual experiences and the wisdom that you acquire through them.
Yeah.
So many religions or structures of worship emphasize the wisdom, and others emphasize the spiritual experience.
True.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Or like the Enlightenment.
So
like
for those of you
through that
were interested, I'm just following up on that last thing we talked about.
Yeah.
The University of Kansas did this big study on it, and they found that it looks like cannabis originated actually in thousands of years ago in Asia. That's where it started.
Oh.
And then found its way, different regions, eventually to the Americas. But they said a lot of time, like even medieval times, they found that evidence of Vikings and medieval Germans using it for relieving pain during childbirth and for toothaches. But yeah,
those are two very similar pains.
Yeah, right.
Toothaches and childbirth.
But so yeah, it's
honey, I've had a
something
toothache.
That's been around for a long
time. Yeah, I had a toothache. It's from
Come on.
It's from that was the I have glaucoma of back then. Like
right.
I found the article is they found it on pipes that were found near his garden.
Gotcha.
So pipes.
It's kind of
interesting.
So
I would be curious where alcohol, like how prehistoric is alcohol.
I've often thought like the beer is not like it's not. No one could sit down and say like the first time they had beer it was like a good tasting thing.
Mm.
I mean, maybe some people, but not most people. Yeah. And I wonder about that,
especially before refrigeration.
There's a guy
it's like a hot day and you're having a hot beer.
yeah.
Like a hot,
in some countries, like
beer out of a big old wine.
Yeah, room temperature beer is a thing. It's like that's just wrong. Like if you're gonna drink it, it may as well be cold. But like that process of getting to that, like somebody was like, "Well, that water looks disgusting. I think I'll try it." And then they try it and they're like, "That was disgusting."
But I didn't get sick and die.
I didn't get sick and die. It did make me feel kind of okay, and I think I can improve upon this.
I remember somebody telling me their theory about beer was that if you travel the world for beer, the worse the water is there, the better the beer will be.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because they're trying to fix it. That's kind of like with the whole wine thing.
Well, even wine, though, I feel like is somewhat similar. Like, unless it's like a sweet wine, like a, I don't know, is Merlot bitter wine? Some wines, like I can't imagine
aficionado at all.
Tasting that.
Merlot is
like,
red.
This is going to be good for me.
Although, I do know.
I'm here to help.
Yeah, I do know. Like, there was a shower thought. I don't think we actually read it, but I saw it like going through my feed that was talking about like grapes and how we drink them, we eat them as a child, we drink their blood as a child, and then as we get to an adult we let them sit a long time and drink them, and if we let them sit too long, then we eat them as adults again, like as raisins. Like
that's funny.
All those different stages of grapes that we consume.
Reminds me of the Craisins story.
Craisins.
I haven't heard that.
Well, craisins are what's left when you make cranberry juice. And for the longest time, I'm told, right?
Right.
They were just a byproduct. And they were thrown out, right?
Really?
And then whatever the company is said, we can
Ocean
sell
Spray.
these. Yeah. And started packaging them, craisins, selling them. And it was like multi-million-dollar industry created out of
That's
nothing,
hilarious.
out of garbage.
That's amazing.
I heard similar, like with the Tabasco company, they're like, we're not selling this stuff. Our sales have been just kind of plateaued forever. What can we do?
Mm.
They were talking about marketing and all this kind of stuff, and some engineer came in and goes, what if we just opened up that little hole in the top 25%? And they did. Their sales skyrocketed.
Because you run out faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
We're just gonna make people use this longer or use more of this.
Use more of it. Yeah. That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
funny.
I think about the, growing up, they talked about the Native Americans on the plains who would use every part of the buffalo. Right. That was the story.
Is that true though? I mean,
I would believe it if that's if you're in a land of grass where there's not even trees.
True.
To speak of, there's some.
Yeah,
and,
they're
and
like
there's
shrubs.
Herds of tens of thousands of buffalo, and that's your resource.
That's it.
Yeah, but if you think of American industry, it's like that. They'll take the chicken byproducts and they'll feed the fish that they're farming to put in the can to sell back to you, and then they'll take the byproduct from the fish and they'll feed it to the chickens. You know what I mean? Like everything is a potential. Every waste product is a potential income source. But the waste in America, especially around food, which you hear often about, is often that the expiration dates on things are so strict that they have to throw out perfectly good food. It's not that we're like scraping our plates into the garbage and that's ruining the earth.
Well, I mean that's not ruining the earth, but I think there's a potential that there's a lot of waste there. But I think it's also like, number one, we expect food to look a certain way. So like some of the food is
and have a certain
probably
taste
at
too.
waste. Yeah. Because it just looks ugly. Like there's now there's people marketing just that. Like this is ugly food. Yeah.
I heard a comment from a grocer once about that. The ugly fruit is actually gets rotten faster, and it's to their they should remove it, basically was the argument he was saying. That if you left the ugly fruit in there, it'll rot faster and then rot the rest of it.
Right. A ripe piece of fruit will cause other fruit
or
to
one that's like lumpy
faster.
and has divots, and the divots have more bacteria in them that will therefore
oh, that makes sense.
start to break down.
Huh.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Man, learning something every day.
We have gone a lot of places.
Dude, well, and you know that the ugly tomatoes end up in salsa. That's where they go.
Oh yeah, for sure. Or they in the stewed tomato can,
Tabasco,
or ketchup,
or Tabasco.
or ketchup.
Yeah, because they've got to harvest more tomatoes because they're selling so much more of that stuff these days. Yeah.
Jordan, you got any shower thoughts, man?
I do. Well, before we get into that, I thought it would be cool going back to the question that I asked you: is how can people get involved to help you? What does that look like next? How can they follow you? What does that look like?
They can follow me. I think you can follow me on my website. You can subscribe to that.
And we have a link for that in our show notes.
And I have a blog there, and I'm putting out portions of the book. Obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but I'm part of what I want to do going forward is create content. Yeah. And I'm developing several different avenues to do that. So subscribing to things like YouTube and Instagram, you're going to see those announcements as they come forward. And all that is just Luke Zedwick. That's
LukeZedwick.com.
Nice. Yeah. And then I've had a few people reach out to me interested in donations, like a monthly support kind of thing. Yeah. And if that were to take off, I think that would be fantastic. Nice. Yeah. Not just because I can then pay my mortgage, which is like a thing. Yeah. But also because it would free my time to let that creative endeavor be of service to more people. Yeah. If I'm going to go out and become a full-time management consultant, which is part of what I want to do going forward. Right. That will pay the bills. And I won't need anybody donating. Right. But I want to do a lot more than that.
But there's things like you're going to Africa and there's
That's right, and that seems to become
some other things you're doing with kids like in Young Life and stuff like that. Like that does take time and resources that people want you to continue to do.
Right. Yeah. Well, and my hope is that if I'm creating something of value, that people will care about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, even on my website, there's a donate button. You can subscribe through PayPal, and I've had interest in that so far. So we'll see how that goes, because the more that's available, the more I can.
And then you can order a copy of your book. It comes out in July.
That's the goal. Yeah.
goal.
So it's due to come back from the copy editor, and I've got a friend working on the cover.
Nice.
Officially.
Nice, and it's called Problem Solvers.
Problem Solvers, yeah.
Nice.
An educator's insight
Okay.
to raising kids on purpose. You got to have a long
and
subtitle.
You do have a YouTube
course.
channel too, and are you going to be doing videos and stuff?
Yeah, so
again?
I started up actually yesterday, and I worked on one today.
Okay.
My goal is to be really consistent in that content, to grow an audience.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Cool. Well, we'll put a link up to that and your website and everything.
That'd be awesome.
And, yeah, this has been exciting. And if you think of anything while we're doing shower thoughts here, just pipe up.
Okay.
Are you familiar with shower thoughts?
I am. Yeah. It's sort of like Deep Thoughts by Jack Handey, but not quite.
Yes, which I absolutely love. Deep Thoughts by Jack Handey.
Yeah.
And if people want to have a good time, go read those. Or
Jordan,
we can sit
do you
talk
want me to
about
help you read these? Because I did not come up with any shower thoughts today.
yeah, you did. I put a whole bunch
Did
in
I?
here. So that
Are these
means
all original, or do you Google them?
there's a whole like trending shower thoughts section in Reddit
Mm-hmm.
that just people
Occasionally
come up with these.
we have our own shower thoughts that we throw in here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But a
like-
lot of them
like
that we often use are things that we found like, oh my god, that's a great thought. I've thought about that. Or
Yeah.
that's interesting off of Reddit
It's like
too.
Velociraptor. Have you ever seen that? I'll pull some up.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'll go first here.
Okay, you go first.
I'm gonna pick one.
Let me look at them.
for Luke. There's a few here that I was like, ooh, I know Luke's coming on, and there's got to be
Ooh,
some
these
that
are
are
good.
that are
Okay.
themed towards.
I like this. Mine
what
will
we're
just be
talking about.
random.
So first one I've got is correct someone's grammar, and you're an asshole. Correct someone's math, and you're their hero.
That's funny.
As a former math teacher, maybe.
Maybe.
Here, I've got one.
Okay.
If I download a movie in Jamaica, am I a pirate of the Caribbean?
Ooh.
Yes.
You should be.
Yes. yes. Okay. If you're standing at sea level, most of the dead people are buried above you.
That's kind of creepy.
I like that.
You're allowed to drive without a seatbelt, or you aren't allowed to drive without a seatbelt unless you take away the doors and roof, sit on the engine, and only have two wheels.
It's true. Or three.
Or three. Yeah. Still considered a two-wheeler.
So,
It's kind of bizarre.
getting back to aliens,
Oh, yes.
Neil Armstrong, spelt backwards, is Gnort's Mr. Alien.
Proof. What more do you need?
Yeah.
What more do you need, guys?
Yeah.
Settled.
Doesn't take any faith at all. Michael Phelps was always the faster swimmer, even as a sperm.
Yeah,
Indeed.
he wins.
But we all were.
It's
We all were.
Yeah.
We all have some small.
We're all
victory.
gold medal winners, and
Unless you're a twin.
unless you're a twin and you got there second, and then you're a silver medalist.
1 or 2 generations from now, chemotherapy it will seem as barbaric as giving mercury pills for syphilis.
Oh, it's just seriously.
I think that's going to be true too.
Well, barbaric.
Because basically, I mean, you're killing the cancer cell, but you're also killing the tissue around you as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
So was
Your
the
question is,
mercury
are you causing-
effective?
in curing the syphilis,
Or at least in treating it?
no.
Right.
No.
Okay, here's one. If an argument is between two vegans, is it still called a beef? Mhm.
Strangely, society has decided that violence, gore, and death are more acceptable in children's media than swearing.
So true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that leads to the next shower point. We have all at one point kicked a pregnant lady.
Yeah. It's true.
Oh man. When I was thinking about your what do you call it? Your graph, your chart, diagram.
Diagram.
You call it your
Mhm.
diagram. That's right. Children cry when they are hurt physically and shout and cuss when they are hurt emotionally. Adults are the reverse. What do you think about that? Is that true?
No. People respond to pain. Some respond internally. They punish themselves. and other people respond externally, and they
physical
fight against
pain?
the world.
That's what it's saying. Children cry when they're hurt physically, and shout and cuss when they're... Yeah, I guess you
shout and cuss is what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Some do, and yeah, some don't.
So you always hear people say, or we've heard somebody say, "Bitch, please," but I've never heard somebody say, "Bitch, thank you."
How rude! They don't even say thank you.
That's hilarious.
Based on a true story is the made with real fruit juice of the film industry.
That's so true.
Yeah.
This last one is something that I've thought about actually in the shower and other locations. But if you lose $5, it's really annoying, frustrating.
I love this one.
But if you drop food on the sidewalk that's worth $5, it's the end of the world. That kind of goes to show
so true
that items have more value than this physical monetary cash itself.
We're going to get into fiat currency here in a second.
Yeah.
Watch out.
Right. Yeah.
Well, it takes time and effort to go get that food.
It's true.
Or, I mean, it technically at that point, it's worth to you more than $5.
It's the disappointment that you're upset about.
Yeah, you're
the
like
anticipation
really,
and then
the salivation.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, I just salivated so
and
much for that food.
like being hangry is a thing.
Yeah,
Like,
of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So-
But it's not just food. I mean, the same thing.
that's like
goes
the
with-
worst hangry moment is when you're hungry
and you didn't even
just,
get a single bite.
and you just dropped your food.
That happened to me this week. I didn't even get a single bite. I was what was I doing? Oh, hot dogs. I was at a friend's house.
Hot dog.
And I was grilling. Not grilling. We had a fire pit and I had them on a stick and
Roasting.
I made 4 hot dogs and I gave them away to, my kiddos and to my missus. And I got the next hot dog finally and I made myself 2 and I was really hungry and I roasted them to perfection and then I put them on a plate. I turned around, grabbed a drink, turned back around. They were all ready and the dog had jumped up on the table and was eating them.
No.
I was like, I put so much work into this. I'm
And it was
so
the
ready to
last
eat them.
one.
And it wasn't the last one,
Oh.
but I had put so much effort into these hot
And then
dogs
the
and I'd
dog,
already given
the
away a
dog
bunch.
went into the fire.
I think the worst
Yeah.
anticipation is when you have to drive home with a pizza in the back.
Oh, that
and
is
you
pretty
just want
bad.
to eat it and it fills the car.
Ooh, that's
pretty
tough.
That's
That's
like
tough.
when you have like a bag
Unless
of
it's
French
like a Papa
fries.
John's or Papa Murphy's where it's
The
not
take and bake.
where it's
Yeah.
not like it's raw. That's way easier.
If you're
for me.
smelling it, that's not a good sign.
I can
There's
handle
like,
that.
there's like a bite out of it when you get home. And it's like,
They're like,
what are you doing? It's raw dough.
Through the
I just-
cellophane.
it smelled so
Yeah.
good.
You couldn't wait.
Yeah.
It's just this is doughy,
It's
gooey,
hilarious.
chewy grossness.
Oh, cool.
All right, man.
Good stuff. Well,
You got
Luke,
anything
thanks
else
so
for
much
us,
for hitting
Luke?
us.
No, it's good to be here.
Thanks so much, man.
Super
Appreciate
fun.
it.
Yeah.
Fun stuff. Guys, thank you for listening to Testing Normal, episode number 20.
2-0.
20.
Wow.
We're gonna be
Um,
back next week with a really.
We
Should
got
we
an
just tell them what we're gonna do?
exciting- Yeah, guys.
Okay.
Guess what?
This is gonna be super fun.
Super excited about these guests.
Because do you know what next Sunday is, Luke?
No.
It's Father's Day.
Oh, yeah. I have one of those.
And so do we. And we have somehow convinced that. Wait, they might be listening to this. We have somehow convinced them to join us.
Your
as,
dads.
as a pair
Wow.
and share their wisdom with the
On
world.
this warm couch together.
Yep.
Get ready, guys.
Yeah, my dad's a
He's not a small man.
He's a pretty small guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a little big boy. He's a big
He
guy.
could, he could wear a
tall.
Sasquatch
He can handle
suit
his own.
Ooh. Maybe he should
on the
wear
side of a highway.
He should wear
Yeah.
a Sasquatch suit
And my dad
In
has
the
a
pouring
mustache
rain.
Yeah.
that'll drive you guys crazy.
in the
and
pouring
wild.
rain. Yeah.
But yeah, we're excited to have our pops on, and we'll be able to talk to them. I'm excited to throw curveballs at them.
Ooh, yeah.
Like I think that'll be fun. Like just random topics that they
my dad
wouldn't
did
normally
ask. He
focus
said,
on.
"Can I conspire with Curtis's dad first?" And I was like, promptly gave him the wrong phone number. Actually, I don't even think I have your dad's phone number. So
Did you actually try to give him it?
no,
Oh,
no, not at all. I was like, I don't care. You can try
Yeah,
to
go for it.
I guess that falls under. He argued it fell under testing normal to like for them to collaborate and then
Oh.
come,
Prepared.
try to.
They're
throw
gonna
us
have
off our
curveballs
game.
of their
I was
own,
like,
We're
Yeah.
excited.
yeah, it's like there's a few things that we care about. So like,
Yeah.
Diaper pictures.
yeah,
Yeah.
Bring it.
Yeah,
Love
whatever. It's fine.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, if you like us, let us know on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Let Luke know too with LukeZedwick.com.
That is correct.
And,
You like looking around,
making sure
is
that's
that
right.
it? Yes.
Yep.
The link will also be in show notes.
Give us your thumbs up. Give us your thumbs down. We appreciate y'all. Have a great night.
Yeah.
Peace out.
See ya.